Would you like to know why staying too technical will kill your enterprise architecture career? If so, this video is for you. This video is a hard one to make because I'm going to go over through some uncomfortable truths that will literally kill an architecture career, and it'll kill it very quickly. And here's what happens. If you've been an engineer, for example, in the past, and now you've moved into an architecture role, and your goal is to stay technical and to keep the respect of the engineers around you, you're almost guaranteed to fail in that role. And it's not because technical skills are not bad or bad. Technical skills are wonderful. And it's not because engineering skills don't matter, because they matter a lot for an engineer. It's because your job as an enterprise architect, a cloud architect, as a security architect has nothing to do with engineering. You are not just a new senior engineer role with an architect title. And if you continue to operate at the level of an engineer, here's what's going to happen. The consequences will be very real. They're very predictable, and I've seen it happen time after time. And in most cases, they are career ending for the architect. And I don't want you to make that mistake. So in today's video, I'm going to show you what happens when, say, a new enterprise architect or a new cloud architect clings on to being too technical. I'm going to show you why it will destroy their credibility with leadership and ultimately career. I'll show you why the C-suite and the board will stop listening to anything you have to say, as well as listen to your architectures, and why this will quietly stall careers, and people don't understand why. Wait, I got a new tech certification. I got more tech skills. So generally speaking, if someone comes from a non-tech background, we generally don't have this problem. But often we find someone that was a great engineer. Maybe they were the best network engineer, the best security engineer, the best coder on their team, and somehow they found their way into an architect role. And when you've spent your life developing skills, you might naturally want to keep these skills. So the person says, well, I'm in a new job, but I'm going to stay technical. I want to make sure the engineers respect me. So I'm going to stay close to the tools. I've seen it time and time again. And that way I can prove to those engineers I still belong there and I'm still technical. Well, here's the real problem. Enterprise architecture, cloud architecture, security architecture, they're not an enhanced engineering job. They have honestly nothing to do with engineering. So when you focus your energy on the engineer's job, things like Terraform or Kubernetes and terminals or the service minutia between various cloud providers or even a code review, you're spending time on someone else's job. And guess what? The company is paying someone else to do that job. They're paying you to do something different, which basically means you're working in a job doing something completely different than what the manager wants you to do. I hired you to be a physician and you're not at the hospital, you're flying airplanes all day. It's really the same thing. So why do we really exist as enterprise architects? We don't just, think engineers. We're operating at a completely different altitude. So the engineer says, how do I build this? Your job as a cloud architect, security architect, enterprise architect is, why are we building this thing in the first place? What business capabilities do we need as a company? Enhance sales, what happens, enhance supply chain, whatever. And how is this architecture going to enhance those business capabilities? How does this new architecture that we've created enable that organization to achieve its strategic goals 1 year from now, 6 months from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, potentially? What trade-offs are we making by taking this option versus the other option? What risks as an organization are we accepting with this architectural option? And this all goes into what outcomes the leadership cares about. So as an enterprise architect, we're hired to optimize business strategy. We're optimized to shape and evolve the business capabilities. We're aligning business domains and technology domains. We're managing stakeholder needs and conflicts because what's good for sales might not be good for the product team. We're translating between business needs and business strategy, the technology options that we have, risk, and finance. And of course, for us, much of our work is being able to be seen, respected, and heard by the CEO and board. Now, in order to be respected by your management, which is the C-suite, the board, and the key stakeholders, they require to see strategic thinking, executive communication, business acumen, influence, and leadership. They don't care if you can create a YAML file, and if you try to show them they can, you're probably going to be escorted out of their office, not executed. So here's the real big consequence: loss of the respect from management. And here's what happens when you stay overly technical. Your manager no longer sees you as a strategic leader. They see you as a senior engineer with a fancy title. Someone who may like to create an architecture diagram, someone who debates tools instead of outcomes. Now, the next thing is the leadership says, why am I paying this person an exorbitant salary? They're not helping me make decisions, because they're not. They're making any decisions. They're staying technical with the engineers. They're not reducing risk at the business level. They're not accelerating outcomes, and they're not helping me with trade-offs. And as soon as budgets get cut, or it's the end of the year cut expenses time, they're the people that are typically in trouble. Because the strategic leaders will protect those people that are doing a job and adding value, and technical specialists are not the same as architects. Now, the second influence, which was just as bad as a way to kill your architecture career, is coming from losing influence. That's the second real consequence we're talking here. And influence with executives isn't about knowing some kind of technology. Your influence with executives, which is critical to your success, is about being able to understand business priorities. Understand and speak the language of the C-suite as if you're speaking to the CFO, for example, when you're building business case, or speaking to the COO about how your architecture will reduce friction inside of the organization. Influence comes from framing architectures in terms of business outcome. This will affect EBITDA by this method. This will enhance revenue by this. This will reduce cost of goods sold by this, something that matters that business people understand. So we are there to help the leaders say yes to the architecture with confidence because we showed them what was in it for them. Now, when that architect's focused on keeping those engineers, which is not their job anymore anyway, happy by staying too technical, what happens is that architect will be invited to every engineering conversation, which would be great if they were an engineer. But what happens is the business leaders will stop inviting them to meetings. They'll either bring them in late, or they'll stop bringing you in at all. You'll be asked to review stuff instead of shaping things. And at that point, you're not influencing architecture. You're just commenting on it. So when that starts to happen and you start to lose relevance with the executives and the key stakeholders, the C-suite and board starts ignoring you. And this is a brutal one because I've seen it. The person shows up with the C-suite, the board, they talk about services or tools or platforms. And the first thing that happens is the C-suite, the leadership team says, this is a techie. This person can't help me. They're not a peer strategist. They're not a trusted advisor. They're not a decision partner. And once you get that perception of being the engineer that's not there strategically, your career is typically over at that organization. So the executive team wants to see from the architects, how will this impact our risk posture? What's the rationale behind the investment? And what is the business case behind the investment? Is this technology solution strategically aligned to our goals? Those types of things. What are the long-term implications of those decisions? So if you're not operating at that level and focusing your time on being able to work with that, you're not doing architecture in the first place. And you're proving every day that you don't know what architecture is, which is not a good place in a company. And sadly, I've seen it happen. So that's where things really start to come. People get confused. They're working hard. They're trying to stay technical. They're getting every certification they can, but promotions don't come. Influence goes down. Visibility inside the organization decreases. Someone else starts doing the strategic things, and then the person doesn't even know why their career stalled. And their career stalled because they were hired as an enterprise architect or a security architect or a cloud architect, which is an executive role. And then they continued operating as if they weren't promoted. They continued to operate as an engineer, which is a completely different role. And the reality is organizations reward people for the job they do, not the title that they hold. So anytime you reach an architecture career, you kind of have this fork in the road that you need to think about. If you've come from an engineering background, it's going to be very comfortable to stay technical, stay respected by the engineers. Unfortunately, the engineers don't sign your paychecks. The engineers have no impact on your promotions. And the engineers are not your management as an architect. Now, the other path says, become a strategist, become a leader, become business executive and CXO relevant. And that's where you invest your time. You simply can't walk both paths at the same time. In enterprise architecture, cloud architecture, security architecture, these architecture careers are generally not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the person that helps that business make a better decision. And if you want to succeed in your architecture career, especially as an enterprise architect, you have to start acting and functioning like one. And that's the secret to growing your enterprise architect career, cloud architect career, security architect career without getting it crushed by focusing on someone else's job. Now, if you'd like to become an enterprise architect or a security architect or a cloud architect or an AI architect, join me in a completely free architecture webinar. We run 2 of these webinars per week. On these webinars, I'll talk about what we do as architects, the skills you need as architects, how to stand out as an architect, and any other questions you may have, because these free webinars are live on Zoom. You can sign up for any free architecture webinar by clicking the link and registering in the description of this video. Also, while you're in the description of this video, we have many free resources to help you with your IT architecture careers, like security architecture or AI architecture or cloud architecture. We also have resources on becoming, winning the interview, and so many other free things for your architecture career. So maybe sign up for some free resources and they'll be emailed to you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell to be notified of new videos to assist you in your architecture career. This is Mike Gibbs signing off for now, and I hope to see you soon.